welcome back. You're still watching a news review right here on Power Breakfast on Citizen TV, and we're here with Senators Kimani Wamatangi and Hassan Omar from Kiambu County and Mombasa County, respectively, seated on my left, immediate left, and extreme right. And we also have Bwana Kipruto Rapkirwa, Deputy Party Leader, ANC, and also an aspirant for the Trans Nzoia Senate seat. Now, during the break, we've been joined by another aspirant for Senate, Bwana Karanja Kabage.
Nakuru.
He aspires to be the next senator for Nakuru County.
Yes, yes.
He's a businessman and lawyer. Karibu sana, Bwana Kabage.
Thank you very much. A philanthropist.
Yes.
He funds a lot of women's rights issues.
Oh,
well, you know, Kenyans don't think that you can fund civil society organizations which are pursuing certain objectives. So you go to the US, you find a lot of people who have been a little endowed funding research in the university, women's rights issues, human rights issues. So I'm aware totally that he funds certain agenda issues.
I wouldn't have done a better job at introducing you, Bwana Kabage. You should thank the senator here for that introduction.
Senator, for complimenting.
As we continue the news review, I need to remind the viewers that you can tag any of this gentlemen on Twitter at K. Wamatangi, at Senator Wamatangi, that's at K. Wamatangi, at Kiro Official, that's a Twitter handle, at Hassan Omar H, and at Karanja Kabage on Twitter. Yes, my Twitter handle is @FreddyNimuli. You can also tweet us at Citizen TV Kenya. As we continue the conversation,
I wanted to just highlight something. On the nation, if you guys put it on the screen, I've always wondered why the national government allocates itself in excess of 60 billion annually when the health function has been devolved almost fully.
But surely, this has been not an allocation to the national government.
It is an allocation 100%. In the last budget, they allocated themselves 67 billion. And we raised issues. Why are you allocating yourself 67 billion? More money than the county's combined use on healthcare annually. So these are some of the issues, Senator Kirwa and Senator Kabage, when you're there, you should be asking and interrogating these types of questions.
Yes.
Why are you allocating 61 billion when you're only handling 3 referral hospitals and a policy element?
Those are the nitty-gritties of this budget proposal that we had started talking about just before the break, before Bwana Karanja Kabage joined us, and we discussed the issue of MP's severance package. Now the details that are emerging, as Senator Hassan Omar H put it, they're there on the front pages of the Daily Nation and the Standard, winners and losers and all this. Of course, Parliament will get to discuss all these things. These budget proposals are were presented yesterday, and of course they'll come to the Senate as well. So I'm assuming this is one of the issues you'll raise. Now, the other issue I want us to discuss is to do with the transition, because unlike previous years, this is the very first time we're having the financial year starting, and a month into the new financial year, we have the general elections. Meaning that even the county governments will be changing. The governors will have already worked out on their budgets for the counties, yet most of them will not come back as governors. That means there'll be a regime change at the county level. Hypothetically speaking, it could also happen at the national level. You work out a budget, a month into the new financial year, the administration changes. What happens especially at the county level? Karanja Kabage, are you concerned that this could present an issue?
Well, I think we must bear in mind Kenya is a living institution, organ. It doesn't matter who is going to be in charge of a county or even national government. Our expenditure for services does not stop because you changed one governor for another or a head of state for another. We must realize this is a national function of budgetary allocations and expenditure, and it will continue. So from my point of view, what really needs to be of concern is how are we spending money for what services, and that should be the focus, but not to say that what will happen to the budget. The budget has to continue. Just like we are going to have the office of the Inspector General of Police opened. Doesn't matter who becomes, and there will be expenditure.
But
allocated to that.
Senator Hassan Omar, you are looking forward to being the next governor for Mombasa County. You disagree a lot with what the current governor has been doing in terms of even allocations and in terms of so imagine he's worked out a budget for the next financial year. A month into the election year, he leaves office, you become governor. Doesn't that present a problem for you?
In fact, one of my policies, my 4-point plan, is the reorganization of county priorities. I think I'll be funding more the health sector, water, basic services, social justice will be the mainstay of my business. So what I'm going to also have much less money because I'm going to cut down on all these rates that we have put to particularly the lower cadre of business people.
But you never have to wait.
It doesn't have to wait. What you do in the first month or so is to get your people to tell them to try to see whether they can respond in a certain way to some of the promises that we've made. So what you do is you do an audit of the budget. What are their existing obligations? Is there a road under construction? Is there some kind of public works going on? So you retain those so that you can complete those projects, so that you do not create ghost projects. But what are intended to be new projects? You realign it to terms of what are your priorities.
That means you have to rework the whole financial planning.
Not necessarily, because most of it I think will be tied. You know what? This government really allocates a lot of contracts with friends. So I think they'll be really trying to now pay off whatever there is. So these obligations are obligations that you must meet. So what happens there then is to now see what are the areas of priority, how much investment are we going to add in the area of water, ECDs, the areas that are my priorities. And therefore, on the basis of that, you present a supplementary budget in terms of just realigning the same monies that you have to meet up with some of the expectations that you have or some of the election pledges that you've made, in particularly the first quick wins on some of the areas. So you present a budget, and then you're going to have much less money because definitely, you know, you don't when people are poor, you don't ever tax them. In fact, you give them reliefs so that they can be able to expand their purchasing power.
Bonakirwa, that means for the first year of probably quite a number of new county governments, they'll be busy trying to meet obligations of the previous government and not really working out on their own plans.
Well, my worry is not that particular issue, because half of the money that is allocated for counties will go for salaries and other normal expenses, and therefore 50% of the money is already catered for. Number two, as Mheshimiwa Omar has said, there are those ongoing projects that any responsible leader is not going to wish them away. Three, my main worry, and that's where my worry is I hope the Minister of Devolution is putting a policy framework so that the handover from the outgoing governor to the incoming governor and all the entire government or at the county level is going to be smooth transition. Otherwise, a lot of things are likely to be lost in between, and there will be a lot of confusion. And when an audit is done, a lot of misgivings are going to be provided by that kind of transition. So, because this will be the first transition from one governor to the other, and as usually politics is in Kenya, 50% of our colleagues will not sit in the next phase.
Now, Senator Omatang, you've been working on a bill specifically for this, trying to ensure that there's a real smooth transition between one county government and the next. Probably that could help address such an issue as well.
And actually, the purpose, the intention of that bill was precisely what Mheshimiwa is saying. But before we go there, part of what we would need to make clear to our viewers to understand is that when these budget proposals have been moved 4 months ahead, that does not mean that after we pass the budget that the timelines again will change, so that we say disbursements used to go in June, so wait for June. Immediately the budget is passed, and disbursements will start to be sent out to counties, and government will start spending. And that's what I was saying earlier, that we would need to question, especially at the county government level, that there were allocations which were sent according to the structure and plan of the previous budget. Now you have other structures that have been moved forward 4 months, and disbursements start to happen. Now, is the planning in place suitable and capable to deal with those quick disbursements that have gone? And in light of what I said earlier, that we have had sometimes county governments just not being able to absorb funds. And not only county government, including sometimes even national government. And so what we would need to say is that that question needs to be answered from the county government's level, especially. Secondly, if you look at the time that has been moved forward, by the end of the life of this government, elections happening in August means that at least half the budget itself would have already been spent. So you're talking about 2.6 trillion. 1.3 trillion or more will have already been out in the marketplace. So that question must be answered. Lastly, is what Mheshimiwa is saying. I worked on a bill which has already been through the Senate. It's now headed to the National Assembly. We passed it. The intention of that bill, and as I was having it go through the process, actually the Minister of Devolution also brought in the proposals. And what I sought to address is the problem we had the first time. Remember, what happened to governors when they were coming to sit, to assume office, was national government went to some kitty somewhere, took 60 million each and gave each governor. You go and plan your own office and how you will start off. And some of them went and organized parties, others brought traditional dancers and cakes and whatever and biscuits. Now we said, let's make this tidy. And so let's have a known system that says that this is how you move from office. So I proposed in that bill that there will be a transition committee that will be formed that includes several of the players
for every county.
For every county, yes. And this committee kicks in 90 days to the day, and
to the election.
To the election, and at that time. The transition process will have started in the sense that, for example, governors will be required to bring in their assets and liability registers that says that since when I came office, these are all the assets I found and I assumed from the previous defunct authorities. And this is what I did with these assets. I registered this one here and there. This is what I've acquired since that particular time and registered there here. These are my debts. These are my obligations as far as the county government is concerned in liability.
So meaning that the budget will have to be subject to that as well.
Yes, absolutely. Now, when that has been done, the reason you've seen we've had quite a bit of a run-in with governors. They actually were threatening that they are going to be opposing the bill at one point or the other when it's assented to, is because what we were saying in our amendment is after this register has been accepted and audited, a governor cannot then come immediately after those 90 days to the day and say that I want to go and start another project somewhere and start spending another 300-400 million or even 500 million. That will not see an entry into that particular register because they can at that time spend on recurrent expenditure and so on. And this is the key, at this time, as you said and as Mheshimiwa Kiro has said, it's possible that more than 50% or even more may not see their time back in office. Now, many of them would be planning to spend part and big amounts of this money in their campaigns.
Yes.
And we have to deal with this.
Yes.
And what we wanted to address with that bill is precisely that, so that there is absolute fiscal responsibility.
I just want to comment on three things. First, in 2012, there was a Transition to County Government Act that was passed and created structures that I was supposed to address how do we now have institutional capacities of governors. Now, that never worked. It had two phases. The first phase was from September 2012 to March 2013. And then from March 2013 to post 3 years, 3 years after, we had the second phase. But what happened? The first phase started working. Now, when it came to the question of the second phase, now we had the governors in situ. And then we had also the cabinet secretary for devolution. They rubbished the Transition to County Government Act. What was the consequence? 140 billion shillings has not been accounted for in terms of assets of the previous counties and various local governments. And that's a very serious issue that has not been seriously addressed. The second thing I want to say is this. If you look at our constitution, particularly Article 10 on the national values and principles of governance, one of the sub-articles there provides for public participation. So let's look at the issue with what they call the integrated county development plans, which are the blueprint or the master plan of the county government. Now, those plans, you ask yourself, how much of public participation has there been? Why do I say that? Take, for example, we have got, if we are truly talking about devolution, then it means the public must participate from the ward level. Their needs, therefore, must be the one that is informing the integrated county development plan and master plan. Now, if today the senators were to interrogate how much of the 47 counties, or how many of the 47 counties have been true to the principles of public participation, it's a very big question mark. And that's why today you find the governors are held to ransom by MCAs. It shouldn't happen like that, because in my opinion, the first 90 days of county government, and I'm hoping my brother here will be elected governor, you need to sit down, first 90 days, and develop a master plan. How do you develop a master plan? You need participation, all the public from the ward level, coming up, and then determining what are their priorities of development. Now those priorities of development must therefore be incorporated and integrated in the integrated county development plan. So that even if you have a new governor coming in, the priorities of the people at the county level, at the ward levels, they are very clear.
Yes.
Therefore, there is no question of them being push and pull. And that to me...
But, gentlemen, we have 5 months to the election. Do you even have these plans?
No. Let me tell you. That to me is most important. And that's why I have a serious issue with the devolution from the perspective of MCAs being allocated physical cash by governors. Because that's not their role. They have no business implementing development plans. Their role is to oversight. And that oversight must be based on a predetermined development plan that has come from the public. You get what I mean? For instance, if a ward wants water or health or education, or they want whatever priorities are, those priorities don't change because the new governors come in. They remain there. And that's why if we are going to be true to the principles of governance at the level of devolution, then the public at the level of ward must make a determination.
For me, if you look at, there was a very elaborate interview I gave with the Standard on Sunday. That's where I mentioned about my 4-point plan in terms of the software of my deliverables and the hardware, which is the developmental. The first one is about building a model of civic engagement, both in terms of input into government and output from, and feedback from the people. And this model of civic engagement, because for me, in my assessment, devolution is actually our social revolution with respect to that. If you look at Article 174, the first principle the first object of devolution is to bring government closer to the people and to foster the participation of the people in decision making. So it is supposed to mean, and the organization is that you are given up to a village or a ward administrator. Those administrators are supposed to create a revolution in terms of how we manage the affairs of our counties. They're not supposed to be your political cronies who simply are campaigning for you at that level. So I do agree, and the CIDPs, most of them might not necessarily be responding to both public participation or very scientific research. Because if you want to do a CIDP, County Integrated Development Plan, you need to have a baseline survey about poverty, about many other issues. What are the gaps in terms of water and other public services? They cannot just be done from
so you agree that what we have right now will not necessarily
I have looked at some of the CIDPs, and I think Mombasa included, there are those that are extremely wanting, that need to respond to the various ward to ward, or for that matter village to village priorities, so that they are captured in the planning estimates.
We need to take another commercial break. When we return, we need to look at other headlines as well away from the budget proposals. A voter listing comes to another end today after the extension, and of course yesterday members of the National Assembly threw out a bill that was intended to tame sexual predators. That and more when Power Breakfast returns.
I had 3 points.
Oh, I thought you said I have 2 points.